Howdy, folks. I'm Brian,
I'm Amber.
and here's some Reddit. Today, I guess, is Friday Junior for those who are watching, so enjoy your Friday Junior. All right, our first letter is titled, Am I a jerk for giving my elderly cat to my neighbor? My cat is 18 and he's tired and doesn't want to play. I pay for his upkeep. I go over and feed him. I go over to give him water, and in exchange, Edith keeps him company. She reads to him and sits in her lap. I love the cat, don't get me wrong, but I've loved him for 18 years and he knows it. There's someone who needs him more, though, and I work in medicine during the day and my residency is tough. I'm in obstetrics and I'm not at home to give the cat the interaction that he needs, and when I am home, I study and do chores. Edith is in her late 80s, her husband died a few years ago, and she's lonely. I don't think the isolation has suited her well, and so I went ahead and brought the cat to her because she really has no one. The cat was going over to her house anyways, and so I thought I'd offer him to her during the day. She reads aloud her library books to him, he sleeps, and she thinks he's the reincarnation of her husband. Cat also answers to Klaus, so that's a bonus, and he seems to enjoy when Edith speaks in German to him, because she thinks he's her husband. My roommate has taken a real offense to the fact that the cat has been reassigned. Apparently, it's abusive. I'm abandoning the cat, and she needs him more. She's taken the cat as her emotional support animal, but he literally leaves on his own. My roommate made a whole long Facebook post about how I'm abandoning the cat and destroying her mental health by taking away her emotional support animal, and how I'm a horrible, ghastly bee. I'm of the opinion that the cat is literally my cat, and he needs to be with someone who has no real interaction and is suffering deeply. Please settle this. Am I the jerk?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, the thing is, I don't understand how you could possibly keep the husband away from the wife in this situation. It seems like you would be cruel to not allow the husband to be reunited with his wife.
Clearly, the elderly neighbor is suffering a lot.
Yeah, no. I'm not making fun of the elderly woman in this case. I just...
It is a rather interesting idea that she has. But, I mean, she's having a rough go of it, you know, and we don't know how much of this is isolation, how much is maybe age-related, decline and stuff like that. And if it brings her happiness and she's taking care of him, then, that I don't see anything wrong with that.
Well, it also seems like they aren't, actively bringing Klaus over there. Or I guess we're calling him Klaus because I don't know what other name he has. Cat?
Yeah, Cat.
Because the thing is, the cat's going over there on its own. And it's not like OP is cats aren't controllable. I mean, let's face it, cats do what cats want to do. And, he, in all intents and purposes, has picked a new owner. And that's what it sounds like. Because cats will choose people that they want to be with. And in this case, she's chosen this elderly woman. And it's a harmless arrangement. It doesn't matter that her, ideas are maybe a little, I wouldn't say silly, but just out of the ordinary. Because it's harmless. It's not doing anyone any harm, except for maybe the roommate here who seems to understand that she can go buy her own cat.
That's what I was going to say, is if the roommate needs an emotional support animal, that's a legitimate thing to need.
It is.
Why does it have to be this particular cat, who's probably not long for the world anyway? I mean, he's 18, so,
I think the oldest cat now, if I read the other day, is 30.
Yeah, I think I've heard of a 30-year-old cat, which is pretty impressive.
So, I mean, that cat could still have a lot of good years left in it, right?
Potentially, but statistically speaking, cat is probably coming down toward the end of his life.
Yeah.
So it would probably be best for the roommate to get her own cat, one that she does have a bond with, because, I mean, it sounds like Cat was just going over to the neighbor's house all the time, and then OP kind of made it official. Now he's
Yeah.
not coming home at all.
Well, I don't know if he's not coming home at all, but I think it's a little unclear to me.
It is a little ambiguous, but I think that's why the roommate's upset. It's because he's over there all the time now instead of just wandering over during the day.
So, because it still sounds like OP. Well, I guess if OP's brought the litter box and everything else over there, then there would be no reason for the cat to come back over to, OP's house.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess you're probably right. I mean, they go over there and feed and take care of the cat and probably give the cat pats and stuff like that. And OP made a really valid point. They're not home enough to take care of that kind of cat and provide it with the attention it needs.
Yeah.
And Edith is, she's being very loving. She's being very caring towards this cat. And, the cat isn't going to, the cat's going to have a very happy life,
Yeah. Well, and if Edith is amenable to company, there's no reason why the roommate couldn't go over and say hi and pet the cat.
Yeah. But I agree with OP here that Edith probably needs this particular cat a little bit more.
Yeah.
If it was just any cat, it would probably be fine. But she also thinks that this cat is the reincarnation of her husband, which, is probably not a cat she would be willing to part with, or would want to.
Right.
It would bring her about a lot of emotional duress, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think this is probably a sincerely held belief on her part.
That's what it seems like, is that with the cat going over there, she got this idea that he was her husband coming to visit her, and it's given her comfort.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I really do, especially if she's so isolated.
Yeah.
Let me get a sip of water real quick.
You mean tea?
It doesn't even have any color. I think I think a camera's off us now. I think this is not, so people are going to be even more horrified with me. I think I actually used this tea bag twice and then added water in afterwards. So there's nothing left of this tea bag. It's literally not even changing color. So is this tea or is this water?
Or is Brian just a monster?
Brian's probably a monster.
Our next story is, am I the jerk for being honest about how I was bullied and how the teachers at my school did nothing about it while being interviewed by a current student? I'm an author of mild success. I'm not incredibly popular, but my books sell enough. About 3 months ago, someone from my old high school reached out to see if a student could interview me. I responded that my time at the school wasn't the happiest, but I would give the student responses relating to my career. We had a great chat. She started asking questions about my time at the school, but I redirected. She caught on to what I was doing and asked, I'm sensing that you're hesitant to talk about your time at the school. Is it true? I said, let's focus on the story, and she was like, actually, this could be a better story. So I said, you know what, sure, whatever. I don't owe the school anything. I'm not being paid, and even though it's been a long time and I've grown from what happened, it's still worth talking about. I mentioned a few names in specific and how I tried to ask for help and was blown off by everyone. Teachers at my school very strongly favored the girls in the sports teams and would often be buddy-buddy with them and their parents. I mentioned a teacher who openly mocked the way I dressed, my lack of athleticism, etc. I brought up that time a group of girls followed me around the school mooing at me, and when I broke down crying because they wouldn't stop and tried to tell a teacher, the teacher called me Mooly for the rest of the year, and when I yelled, my name is Molly, Molly, she had me suspended for a week. She ended up publishing the whole interview. Nothing exactly went viral, but there were posts on Facebook with a ton of comments, and it caused some commotion in that community. A few weeks later, I was contacted by a school official who chastised me for bringing up old wounds and trying to paint veteran teachers as bad people when they were going through difficult times already. The teacher responsible for the Mooly incident had a local lifetime teaching award taken away from her after it all came out, so was it really worth it, and maybe did I remember things wrong? Finally, a handful of my old classmates, many of them stuck around town, found me, and I was barraged with a ton of messages telling me that I'm ruining the reputation of the school and of several prominent community members. It was X years ago, so why can't I just get over it, etc. Some of them obviously haven't changed. It was a long time ago, yes. I don't know how I really feel about how this all went down, though. I know times are tough for teachers right now. I didn't set out to hurt anyone. I was just telling my truth. Am I the jerk? No, I don't think Gopi's being the jerk here.
Yeah, well, I don't think they're certainly being the jerk, and I guess it's hard because, like, they informed the school that they didn't have a happy time there, and they kind of took the risk of, still having the student interview them. And so I think that, like, it's kind of like if you ask someone for a, like, reference. Like, you're like, oh, hey, can you give me a job reference? And the person's like, actually, I would rather not, or something like that. And then you're like, oh, it'll be fine. I'll just put you down as a reference anyways. And then they give you a bad reference, and then you complain about it. Like, what would you expect was going to happen? Like, they told you right out the gate that they had a bad experience at this school, but you still were like, oh, go right ahead. Let's have this interview.
Right. Well, and if the people who were hurt by this hadn't been bad people to begin with, or made questionable decisions, to begin with, done some very bad acts, then it wouldn't have come back to bite them.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But if you have a teacher who goes around bullying a student and calling her names for the whole semester, like, she doesn't deserve a lifetime teaching award. Like, I think in some ways, like, it's really important that I mean, it's important to hold people accountable for their past actions. And I think that you're completely right here. And that, while she did earn this lifetime of a teaching award, it was done under the pretense that she was actually, a good and supportive teacher. But when a teacher who actively calls a kid mooly and then suspends them for trying to stick up for themselves, do they really deserve a lifetime teaching reward because of that? Right, exactly. And I think the thing is, like, even if the teacher is, like, good to, like, the majority of the students, you shouldn't treat any students badly. Like, as an instructor, and I teach college students, it is your responsibility to treat all your students with dignity and respect.
Yeah.
And so I think if teachers don't do that, then they deserve to face consequences for their actions.
Oh, yeah. Well, I certainly think that the teacher here, like, she kind of got her comeuppance in the end here, because, like, this was just such a rude thing to do. And, like, high school kids, like, they're not adults. And one can say, well, these kids, they just were, they were bad actors, and they've probably grown up since then. Like, hopefully they've grown up. And, like, it doesn't justify, like, what they did, but kids are cruel, right? But we're talking about a fully grown teacher who didn't discipline these girls for doing this, and not only didn't discipline them, but egged them on, and then involved herself in this behavior. And that's just completely unacceptable. And, things have changed and times have changed, and maybe this teacher changed as well. But it just goes to show that some wounds don't heal,
Well, and I feel like the school wanted to use this author for, like, publicity, and then, like, you don't get to abuse someone and then, like, whip them out and be like, look how great we are. We had this famous author. Yeah.
Well, right after they were like, hey, actually, my time at the school wasn't the greatest. You might not want to interview me. So, I don't know. Well, and, it sounds like this was for, like, a school newspaper is what that boils down to.
Yeah, probably something like that.
And so, like, you're going to take a student who's interested in finding a story and give them an interview with someone. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, they kept digging, they were like, oh, actually, I think this is going to be a more interesting story. And you know what? They were probably right.
So, I mean, I don't think OP did anything wrong here by telling the truth. I think even if there hadn't been an interview, like, you would be allowed to tell your truth years down the line. But especially where they ignored everything, you basically are like, yeah, no, I didn't have a good time. And they're like, yeah, it's fine. Like, they can't blame you when it turns out that, no, it wasn't fine, and everyone finds out.
Yeah. All right. Our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Invading My Friend's Privacy? Please read the context before lending your judgments. I've made a good friend after I finished school. Just to convey their value, they are the first and only friend I've ever had. My parents homeschooled me and didn't want the others to teach me bad habits, so I was essentially socially isolated. Anyway, this led to a lifelong hobby of people watching. I observe people, and I have a journal in which I write everything I can possibly gather about them. Everyone from the cashier I only met once to my coworkers and family. I have a profile for everyone I've interacted with, including my friend. I also have a voice-activated recorder as I save most of the conversations I have with people, just so I don't miss any details. My parents have always thought this to be an unusual hobby, but technically, I'm not doing anything to invade anyone's privacy. Everything I've noted has been passively observed, told to me directly, or overheard by happenstance. It's mostly just things like their opinions, appearance, mannerism, number plates, routines, addresses, family and friends, when they post on social media, when they post, what they post, hobbies, aspirations, left-handed, right-handed, foot dominant, likes, dislikes, etc. So basically, every detail about them. I do not actively go out of my way to find these things about them. My friend found my journal the other day, which included a lot of notes on her, and now she is furious at me. She's creeped out and thinks I have invaded her privacy. I feel bad about it, but the way I see it, people choose to present themselves certain ways. They have control over what they say. The only difference is that I like to remember it. No harm, no foul. My friend wants me to get rid of the recorder and journal. This has been a habit of mine since childhood, though, and I never leave the house without my recorder. It has a lot of sentimental value to me. Writing in the journal is like a daily ritual. I hate not knowing things. I'm pretty sure it all started as a way to get to be closer to those around me. When my parents were away, I would listen to my recordings a lot. At the same time, I value our friendship. So I'm just stuck between a rock and a hard place. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you in advance. I think that OP here is the product of isolation from their childhood.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of childhood trauma going on here.
This is definitely a traumatic experience they had growing up. And the fact that their parents never pulled them aside and were like, hey, you really can't be recording every single conversation, shows you a lot about their parents. Like, they would sit and... this poor kid would sit and listen to these recordings that, when their parents were away, just to remind them of people who were in their lives because they were so socially isolated. Like, yeah. OP is, of course, wrong here. Right. I think any reasonable person in society is going to say, yeah, this is actually kind of creepy. And
potentially illegal if they're in a two-party consent state. Yeah.
And you can't record people, of course, like what Amber's saying, unless you have both parties agree to it in most places.
Yeah, well, it varies from state to state and from country to country. But some places require two parties to consent, and otherwise your recording is,
illegal. Yeah. So this may not be a harmless thing, but we don't know where they live. So this could actually be legal where they live, but not anywhere else.
Yeah, and it's still creepy, even if it's legal.
Yeah. In a little bit of a way, it's a lot like what all the major search engines and other things do. We just don't like to think about it. Like, Google, Amazon, they know everything about you. They probably know all this stuff anyways. But, I mean, it makes it more real to find a journal with all this information in it, and I can see why his friend was freaked out by it. But again, like, I think OP here needs, like, therapy.
Definitely. Like, I mean, I think, yes, OP is in the wrong here, but also I understand if you've never really had the chance to interact with people more than brief passings, why you wouldn't understand that.
Yeah.
So certainly stop recording people and go to therapy are, kind of the two things that have to happen here.
And it also sounds like they might, I mean, I'm not going to like armchair diagnose here, but they might have some obsessive behaviors that the therapist can help them with, because this, like, the fact that they can't leave the house without these things, or they, have to do this every single day, sounds almost like an obsessive type thing.
It is possibly. Like, it's really hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's hard to armchair diagnose people.
I mean, if you've had basically no friends your entire life and have barely interacted with people, like, that's going to do a number on your mental health.
Oh, yeah. And just for that alone, they need to go to therapy. And again, I can't stress this enough, but they never had their parents tell them that this behavior was like an invasion of privacy. So in a lot of ways, it's the parents' fault for never teaching them that this was not a good way to be. So, like, I can understand why OP wouldn't ever come to the realization that, hey, maybe what I'm doing is wrong, if they were never told, hey, what you're doing here is a little creepy and a little invasive. So the way I see it, OP is wrong, but they probably never realized that they were wrong. They weren't being malicious here.
Right, but now that they've been alerted to it, it's important to listen to your friend and take that advice to heart. Yeah,
exactly. Like, now that they know, they can start to do something to remedy this.
Our last story is, am I the jerk for telling my stepdaughter that she isn't allowed to order food when we go to restaurants anymore? This sounds bad, but hear me out. My stepdaughter is an absolute pain in the neck when it comes to food. She has legitimate and not mild allergies, but most of them aren't common things, so every single meal at a restaurant, no matter what she would get, would need several modifications. With so many special requests, something is always going to be wrong. I understand that, my wife understands that, and probably on some level she does too, but it is an entire event every time. She ends up acting like the restaurant is personally trying to kill her. She of course has to send it back, but spirals into a breakdown and won't eat whatever they bring back anyway because it isn't safe, regardless of what the truth is anymore. It makes the entire meal a nightmare for everyone, including the restaurant workers. The younger kids end up having their food go cold because they can't eat with the drama going on, and they don't know what to do. I finally broke and told her and my wife, while we were all together as a family, that she would just have to stop getting food when we went out and that she needs to just wait until we get home. Restaurants don't like having people bring outside food. I think it looks really rude anyway, and she just eats later at home anyway due to these episodes.
This seems reasonable.
No. Not only that, but it is expensive as heck for her to do this. Basic meals that would comply are already not cheap, and it creates so much food waste, which I absolutely hate. My wife says that I don't understand what it's like to have to navigate food when you can't, quote, just deal with it, like everyone else, and a slight mistake can land you in the hospital, and that makes her feel like she's less than and not part of the family. I just want to stop wasting money in food and have more quiet meals. I think we can safely say OP is absolutely a jerk here.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that they refuse to, like, see things from their daughter's perspective, I think is a little disturbing. Like, the fact that any meal that they eat at these restaurants could, kill them.
Right. Like, that's the thing is, like, this is dangerous. We're not talking about, like, oh, I just don't like this food.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about literally could put OP's daughter or stepdaughter in the hospital.
Yeah, well, they need to start, if they want to go out, they need to go to a restaurant that can accommodate her.
Right. They need to, probably it would be best to call in advance, let the restaurant be aware of her needs.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because I mean, places will do that sometimes. So find one who is able to accommodate her. Make sure they know in advance so they're not on the spot.
Yeah.
And
and I think that's actually a really great idea. It's like calling them in advance, letting them have plenty of time to prepare, And then, double checking when you get to the restaurant just to be sure and say, well, if, if they had all this time in preparation and they still got it wrong, then I mean, that's really going to be on them.
Right. And that's going to show you that this is not the restaurant for your family because
Yeah.
they don't care enough for your stepdaughter's needs.
Yeah, you shouldn't be going to a restaurant that doesn't care about your daughter, whether she lives or dies. Let's
Exactly.
put it that way.
Like, her needs are just as valid and as important as yours and your other children's, and I think that's the real issue here is that OP is like, I don't want to waste money and I want to have a quiet meal. So it doesn't matter if my stepdaughter has to sit here watching the rest of us eat.
And that's so cruel.
It is.
Forcing your stepdaughter to sit, or not stepdaughter, but your daughter to sit and eat while everyone else is, or not eat while everyone else is eating is probably one of the most cruel things you can do.
Yeah. And like, especially because this is all happening because she has these life-threatening allergies that are outside her control. So you're punishing her for something that she cannot control. And it makes sense that if a restaurant gets her order wrong once, like, she's going to be concerned they're going to do it again.
Yeah, well, I could see that. If they got it wrong once, who knows if they really went back and fixed it or something like that,
Yeah. So, I mean, and the other option is, like, just doing meals at home instead of eating out. Like, why do you have to eat at restaurants? I understand wanting a break, but like, you can do things like there are meals you can make together,
or order to go from someplace and bring it home, and then let her eat her meals at home, and then let everyone else have like the to go stuff.
Yeah, like as long as everyone has some kind of meal they're happy with, then that's a perfectly reasonable solution.
Order out a pizza and bake her a special pizza. As long as whatever you're providing her with is equivalent.
Right, exactly. Don't just like give her like a peanut butter sandwich when everyone else is eating something delicious.
Yeah, don't do that. That would not be a good solution here. Make sure it's equivalent here.
But don't go to restaurants that your stepdaughter can't eat at and expect her to just like sit there and watch people eating. That's just downright cruel.
It is. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Apparently, I had a recording issue, so you may have actually lost some of the story on the edge there. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the footage yet. I just realized it now. Apparently, yeah. Oh well. It's a Friday Junior event. So thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving me a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy this video, consider giving me a thumbs down. Also, thanks to Amber for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching, and I guess we'll see you all tomorrow. Tea. I'm going to need another sip of tea.